Welcome to Around the Drafting Table, where we explore the fascinating world of architecture through engaging conversations with Utah's leading experts. I'm architect Kory Cox, your host and guide on this journey. In each episode, we'll delve into the essential topics that shape your vision, from understanding design principles to navigating the construction process. Whether you're dreaming of your first custom home, planning a renovation, or embarking on your mountain getaway project, our discussions will empower you with knowledge and insights. We'll speak with industry experts who will share real-life stories, answer your burning questions, and ensure that you feel confident every step of the way. So grab a seat at the table, and let's start building your dream together. Join us for Around the Drafting Table, where ideas take shape and visions become reality. Welcome to Around the Drafting Table, where we talk about topics that are top of mind for homeowners looking to design a new home. I am Kory Cox, the Oxford architect. Our topic today is site selection, a critical junction before your project even begins. Joining us today, we have Premier Award-winning Utah realtor Justin Udy, whose team won Sales Team of the Year from the Salt Lake Board of Realtors. He holds a master's degree in real estate development. Justin, thank you for joining us today.
You bet.
Okay, to begin, let's talk region. What are you finding is the most desirable mountain resort areas for luxury homes in Utah, and how accessible are those areas, particularly during ski season?
Yeah, Park City is probably the number one, but that's just due to the airport being, absolutely so very close.
Yep.
But then you have kind of some adjoining locations that are great. You have communities that are kind of growing, such as kind of near Snow Basin. You have some wars that are a little bit farther south, and so you're seeing those grow. But yeah, definitely, Park City is going to be your contender just because it's been there for a while.
Mhm.
It's the most luxury. Other ones are kind of trying to be Park City-ish, where they're
Mhm.
providing the same amenities as Park City at a different location with just different options that maybe just isn't quite as expensive.
Yeah. What are some of those areas that are pretty well connected to Park City, but not quite in the city proper?
Yeah, I mean, if you kind of go around the mountain, kind of Sundance, where Park City is, around the corner to Sundance, and you have around the
Hmm.
other corner, Snow Basin, and then you have other communities that are farther north and farther south. But again, just
Right.
sticking kind of regionally and locally to the local airports, closest places to the airport would be Park City. I mean, it's a straight shot.
It
Then
is.
a little bit farther away, and you start getting the adjoining locations.
Hmm. Are you aware of any plans for future infrastructure developments in any of these adjoining areas that might increase availability of amenities or utilities, such as the new ski resort at Mayflower?
Right. No, they're all kind of working on different projects, and even there's new people that are trying to put together kind of mountain type resorts with
Hmm.
kind of boutique-ish. But Mayflower is an amazing, very grand project up in Deer Valley. You have, in Ogden Valley, they're working on a big project that's to be delivered. There's not exact dates, but like now the zoning's in place. They're trying to move things around that way. I think it'll be a very good opportunity. And again, this is going kind of up into Eden, Huntsville,
Uh-huh.
as well into kind of the green. Oh my heaven, I'm calling it Green Springs, but kind of this, the locale
Mountain Green, is that what you mean?
Mountain Green. Thank you.
Yep.
My heavens. But yeah, Mountain Green, and because they're kind of like the same distance away from Snow Basin.
Hmm.
But I do think that's a pretty good project. We've gotten some clients in there. We've sold some projects up there. And we've sold properties up in Park City and Heber Valley and all of that also. It's just the price per square foot is different.
Yep.
They're just, one, kind of has the lake, through Eden, whereas Park City, has that park-like feel and the freeway that runs right by it. And it's
Hmm.
just different, right? One is a little bit more um, secluded, whereas Park City truly is a city. So it
Right.
just depends on kind of what people are looking for.
Yeah, Park City really has a lot going on. Everyone's familiar with the Sundance Film Festival and all the different things that happen there. Um, Mountain Green is an interesting one. I would think that that one's actually have a very similar travel time from the airport, and it's like Park City right off the freeway.
No, I agree, and I think it's convenient, it's easy. I think, and again, it just depends on what people truly want to spend.
Hmm.
I had a Park City ski pass for years, and I no longer renewed it. It was too busy, right? So I
Yeah.
chose to go with something that gave me a little more seclusion.
Hmm.
It wasn't so much that it was cheaper, it was just busy, so
Yeah.
uh the price per square foot is completely different. It's attracting a different audience. We have a luxury listing coming up that's more in the Huntsville area, and it'll just check a different mark. But the
Hmm.
price point on this one, for example, is $3.5 million. And one of their questions is could we sell for 4.5? And I said, this is the problem. Now you're contending with a Park City market. So
Right.
it's like, do you want to be a rival?
Hmm.
Where they're like, well, do I pick Park City for the same price or this luxury property? It's like, no, like you want to be a contender. So I just think that there's different amenities, and I don't think one is better than the other. It depends on what folks are looking for, um, and an experience. And sometimes people want to have the community grow around them as
Hmm.
opposed to it's already grown. Whereas other folks are like, nope, I want to be right downtown. I want to walk to the coffee shop. I want to walk to the ski resort, and that's their choice, right? They'll pay
Hmm.
for that experience. Whereas the other one may be driving there, but they're also having maybe better views, more seclusion.
Right.
Again, they're getting a little bit more hometown feel as opposed to maybe a city feel.
Yeah, talking about a development that is kind of up and coming, Wasatch Peaks Ranch, which is just south of Mountain Green and again right off the freeway, is a really good one if someone's looking for a very private ski resort. That ski resort is only going to be available to members of that community, and so
Right.
it's never going to be crowded.
Yeah, yeah, and again, and I believe, and you'd have to correct me, but again, that's it's almost like a membership style, correct?
It
Uh,
is. For listeners who are familiar, it's modeled after the Yellowstone Club. Very similar model. I think some of the same people might be involved. I can't be sure on that point, but it's an 11,000 acre development, very large. A number of something like 3,000 or 4,000 of those acres are set aside as permanent wilderness area. And the idea is that it's going to be, very low density. And so those
yeah,
amenities are to be enjoyed by a pretty select group.
yeah. And so when you have somebody that's looking, like you said, it's select in the fact that it's going to be exclusive in nature.
Hmm.
Two, you have all of the amenities they're looking for, but you're going to be catered to as
Yeah.
if you are in a city, with all the amenities available to you. So I think it's great. I think it gives different reference points for what people are looking for in a second home or a second type, getaway.
Hmm.
And it's exclusive in nature, and people will always pay for that. And I think those communities are great. And I think we've had clients that have enjoyed them, and other people that have preferred not to be in them. So
Right.
so it hits both people.
Hmm. So getting it away from some of the specific areas in Utah, in a more general sense, what do you consider to be the key factors that someone should consider before they purchase a plot of land?
Really, you got to really understand what is the zoning on that property. I can't tell you how
Hmm.
many people have gone through a property and they cannot build or construct, or the height issues on a physical property. So really understand the zoning, and then maybe what are the restrictions on that. You want to understand the access. Do you have true access? Is there easements? Is there some issues of
Hmm.
getting to the property? And it could be a seasonal issue. We've had cabins we've sold where you can only use it half of the year, whereas other ones, they can plow all year long. So those are some things,
Yeah.
is considering the access, not only physically, but also during the season. You want to consider the topography of the lot. If it's way too sloped, is it going to be way too expensive to build on it? Or by the
Hmm.
time you do the retaining walls, is it really going to meet your expectations? Understand if there's utilities. You may be somebody that's like, I do not feel comfortable having a septic tank. I've got to have
Right.
a sewer line. Some properties, frankly, if you only have electric power and it's going to be going out, you may consider like investing in solar.
Hmm.
That you have a secondary use. So making sure we understand the utilities. Again, if you're in a community in an area, you're going to have access to it. But if you're saying, hey, I want a secluded location and I want to feel safe and be off grid, let's say, then you got to consider those as options. Gas versus propane.
Hmm.
Electric versus solar. Things like that are alternative energy sources. They're going to serve your needs. And then
Yeah.
finally, I'd probably say if I'm doing evaluating any property, whether it be one I'm investing into or getting a client into, it's going to be, what is the market for that? Is is this something that is going to appreciate over time? Do I have even an exit strategy on this? Is just this my dream? And I know I'm going to have to just sell it to sell it.
Hmm.
So just understanding the market dynamics, what are they selling for? What type of products are moving? What type of zoning needs to be in place? For example,
Yep.
some people have a mountain resort and the zoning in place only allows 30-day rentals, and they're buying it for the fact saying, I'm building this $5 million property, and if I don't do weekly rentals, I'm never going to make the income on
Hmm.
this resort type property. So you got to understand, good, going back to zoning, but also understanding the market for that based on the terms, because terms are just as valuable as price. So just understand the terms of what that lot is and how it's going to really reflect on your ownership of it.
Yeah. Um, Changing zoning is a very interesting topic. So, we all understand sort of at a base level that it's possible to get zoning changed. But in your experience, how difficult is that? So like on Wasatch Peak Durance, for instance, that entire area was zoned as F1 forestry, no homes allowed. And then they rezoned the entire thing for this development. And obviously, that's a very large development. And someone coming in to do one home is going to face a lot more of a challenge. But how have you found that process to be, and how possible is it really to change zoning?
Well, you call planning and zoning, they'll always say it's possible because they can't
Hmm.
approve or deny anything until they have plans in front of them.
Hmm.
But what I will say is this, and then this is me rezoning multiple properties, is the bigger the project, the more they're going to be welcoming to it because
Hmm.
they do not want an island. What is an island? I want you to imagine a stack of properties here, a stack of properties here. This is all multifamily. Then it comes to imagine like a tiered process, right? You have a commercial property, then it's multifamily, then it's townhomes, and then it's single family, and
Right.
so they don't want to have a commercial property right next to a house, and they'd be more comfortable with townhomes next to a smaller commercial building, right? Kind of this
Hmm.
whole upward trend. But if I'm drawing out a map, and I have like a map behind me, obviously, but like if I'm drawing out a map, they don't want to have this little teeny tiny dot that says single family and then surrounded by something else. So they never
Right.
want to prove an island. Um, the bigger the project, 2 to 5 acres or more, they may look at that different. But if it's just a small parcel, a quarter acre, half acre, full acre, they're going to be like, yeah, there's kind of some minimum standards that we require in order to even consider that. So
Hmm.
just make sure I look at the current zoning plan and ask about the future plan. They may have an overlay that they're not marketing that gives you the ability to know, like, okay, there's a multifamily property that I personally own that I reached out to the city on, and I knew they had an overlay for a higher density. And
Hmm.
so my email literally yesterday is I said, hey, I'm looking at the code and I'm evaluating it. I tried to reach out, and I couldn't get a hold of anybody, and I knew they were off today, so that's why I emailed them. And so when pardon me, when I reached out to him, it was specifically saying, hey, I know that you're offering bonus density. Help me understand with the bonus density if this property would qualify or what I need to do to have it qualify.
Hmm.
And it was because of understanding the current zoning, but also the overlay. So
Yeah.
sometimes that'll help you where they're willing to work with you, but that's because they're working on development and either providing demand for housing or they're looking to build that infrastructure for the demand of the market. If bringing tax dollars into the community.
Mhm.
So anyway, just look at that. So yeah, you can do it, but it's just evaluate what's around it and does it make sense. If you're standing on a lot, you have I mean, this is a true scenario. Went to a lot, multifamily on the right, multifamily on the left, single family right here. Broker
Hmm.
that has been a broker for 30 years is saying, hey, I'm selling this single family home, and they offered him full price offer. He's like, why would you give me full price on this? And I'm thinking, because I know the zoning here is not for a single family home. I know it's for a high density building, right? So
Yeah.
don't mistake somebody's time in the business with experience with planning, zoning, and development.
Agreed. So aside from zoning, do you recommend any other studies or surveys before closing on that lot to generate more confidence in the purchase?
Oh yeah, for sure. No, and absolutely, and those are great questions. So you're going to want to do a phase one environmental. You want to do a phase two. You're going to want to do a geotech study. You're going to understand, get a survey. You want to understand the physical location and what you're buying. If there's
Hmm.
encroachments, you want to get a title report to know if there is any easements or any type of underlying items on that physical project. But those would probably be your bare minimum, right?
Yeah.
After you do those in your initial due diligence, as things come about, that's when you're essentially understanding again the dynamics of the zoning, of the access points, of the topography of the physical lots, getting a topo map, getting the access to the utilities, and what would the cost be to bring those in, you know, um, to bring it to a market standard that you could resell it. So at a bare minimum, yeah, you're doing those phase one, phase two, and you're getting those. But that's just
Hmm.
the beginning. That's to lead you to the next points of other tests and evaluations or bids or contractors for you to know what is it going to take and what is it going to cost to build the structure or the amenity or the investment that I'm looking to do,
Right.
but really doing a thorough understanding with those top level items. And now you're going to have a number of those are macro essentially, and then get some other micro ones that are going to really solidify if this is an opportunity for you or if you need to pass it on.
Yeah. And for our listeners who might not be familiar with all of those terms, what is a phase one environmental and a geotech report?
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, you're getting the details in regards to the physical ground. You know,
Hmm.
is that ground? I mean, simplest of terms is the ground buildable? So you're understanding the history of that property as well as you're digging holes in the physical ground to know, can it compact? Is there water? Is there some sort of, is water seeping up or is it rock underneath?
Hmm.
What is the feasibility of this being a buildable lot in its
Yeah.
simplicity? That's essentially what it is. And there's a number of tests and summaries and different things that they'll do. But I mean, for simplicity purposes, it's just, am I building on a house of sand or a building on a rock? So
Yeah,
that's kind
and it really ends up being a big deal, particularly during the design process. If you find that the soils that you're looking at that are in this site you want to build your home on aren't particularly suitable, you can end up spending a lot of money to take that, to have that all those soils taken out, and then you're being engineered to fill in that you can build on, and it can really balloon and create a line item in your budget that you might not have been accounting for.
well, and you see that sometimes in existing structures. And
Hmm.
I've spent, I don't want to say hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we've spent a lot of money on helical piers,
Hmm.
where, the everything came back perfect, but then there was a portion of ground that just was not as stable. And
Yep.
it's like, okay, we need to now take that helical pier, drive it all the way down, hit bedrock in order to make sure it is supported correctly because and just that is very out of the norm, folks. I mean, but again, to reference it, I mean, the time that it happens, the one in 1,000 times, it's just because the Earth does typically have. You just have to do your tests and evaluations, and
Yeah.
make sure you're putting it on a location that makes sense. The city center, there was a meeting with the mayor we went with, and he was explaining how there was a fault line running through this city center. And so
Hmm.
they made that the park, because that fault line went right through the place. So they weren't going to build on it, of course,
Yeah.
but they were going to have that as an amenity. And so just know that from a macro scale and a micro scale, that's kind of what we're doing. We're evaluating what location on this physical lot would it maybe be the best to create the structure that is going to be sound and withstand the withstand time.
We talked earlier, I think we referenced just briefly, potentially building a property and then using it as a rental. What do you see as the potential for rental income? And then, perhaps more importantly, what do you foresee as some of the risks associated with using a secondary property in that way?
No, I think it's a great opportunity if people like it and enjoy it. You just have to understand, and this is again me stepping into me having my own single family, multifamily, and commercial property spaces. Okay.
Hmm.
So this is coming as me like, taking off the agent hat and putting on my investor hat. but
Yep.
also helping people into these properties. And what I'll tell you is the benefit is obviously extra income, paying down
Hmm.
the value, experiencing equity over time. It's really, I do believe in equity and cash flow and it being a very good, amazing opportunity for growth for your
Hmm.
investments, as well as, I mean, frankly, it gives you a lot of leverage. If it wasn't for, this sounds silly, but if it wasn't for my small little duplex that I purchased way back when, I would have never purchased my project in Park City,
Yep.
because it's just you're starting slowly and you're growing it. It's very rare that somebody comes into a flow of money, and they do it sometimes, but typically they're building it,
Hmm.
over time. And so I just say, look, the opportunity is there. The risk is you have people that don't pay. You have
Hmm.
people that do destroy the property. You have folks that uh, do not obey the terms of the lease, and so you have to either reinforce it or you have to pull them out. I have found that honey is sweeter than vinegar. If you tend to have an upfront conversation about this is the expectations, here's what's going to happen, here's the lease terms. If these lease terms are violated, just know here's going to be the next steps. We are going to provide you a notice. Within 3 days of that notice, then this would happen, and then this would happen. And I don't think we need to get that point, And before we post notice on anything for anything, we always just say, hey, it sounds like there's one issue. Just legally, we have to post the notice. I know you're in the process of doing it. Help me understand what's going on. No, when I post this isn't anything against you. It's about whatever it is, the non-payment, the distress, the nuisance, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And they tend to work with you. Most people want to work it out.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with larger projects, then obviously you may have to involve attorneys. Where you're dealing with corporations, leasing. I mean, we have projects where we have, in one of our buildings, we have the post office in, so that's easier to deal with than maybe Mr. Small Business Owner, which is the brewery, that's the
Hmm.
local brewery that's there. And so just know there's different steps. So just understand the dynamics, read your contracts thoroughly, get your attorneys involved so that they can assist you properly. And don't take everything on yourself, but also make sure that you are protecting yourself from any type of liability, whether it be you're creating your own entity, whether you're having somebody represent you in order to write the documentation.
Hmm.
And one of the key things I just want to mention is understand market values. People tend to maybe overprice or underprice their asset, and
Hmm.
maybe the rentability, whether it be from Airbnb to larger units. And just make sure you're understanding the market standards so that you can have your amenities that you're building match the price in order to avoid vacancy, to avoid any problems that you may be running into. So,
Yeah. Um, So one of the risks that I see, particularly for short-term rentals, is there does seem to be some trend toward large cities and perhaps even resort cities banning short-term rentals. Have you heard any conversation on that point in the Park City area and surrounding areas?
we're tending to find a little bit of a change occur where they're requiring 30 days or more. It's
Hmm.
more of a complaint from neighbors, and it's usually due to mismanagement,
Hmm.
parties, nuisances. So way people are getting around it. They're saying, "Hey, I'm signing a 30-day lease." And there's a portion of the contract that says, "Hey, we're going to, for an extra dollar, you can cancel your lease early." And that's
Right.
how they get around it. So there's some silly things happening. I think in the end, I think it will remain. Um, but yeah, there is some folks in areas that are trying to avoid it, so it feels like a motel. But again, it goes back to know your zoning,
Hmm.
understand what they're doing. If you have to attend a city meeting, consider that as a good option for you, and then go
Hmm.
from there.
Yeah, many times those city meetings are available by web, so you don't even have to necessarily be
Yep,
there in person.
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, moving forward, what have you seen to be the impact of HOAs in some of these resort areas, and are there any particularly pitfalls that you would advise owners to be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, if you have kind of like your exclusive communities, the HOA is what your amenity is. They're offering
Yep.
you everything. If you're maybe an older couple and you're on a limited budget, that HOA could be an issue, especially if you're getting into an older building that's going to have an assessment.
Hmm.
We have a project where it's older buildings. They need to redo the roofs. So they are doing an assessment. And some folks are super excited because it's improving the property. Other folks are like, I have to sell this. I can't afford the assessment. So
Yep.
understand the condition of the physical property, understand what it may cost, and just understand in that HOA, just look at what they have, see what their reserves are, and
Hmm.
know if they kind of have a coffer. Think about how you'd run your life. It's like if
Yeah.
if you're living on the edge and buying a second home, yeah, you probably wouldn't tell your best friend to do that. But hey, if they got tons of money sitting around and they want to have a second home experience, yeah, you may tell your friend to move forward with that second home. Look at that HOA to see, are they financially responsible? Are they going to be able to take care of things? And again, these are things where I say, look, always go a level deeper. I will say, go to the meeting. Another thing that's silly is knock on a neighbor's door. If you're
Hmm.
visiting a project or a property, knock on one of the neighbor's door. Hey, how is the HOA? How does it work? Are you concerned about anything? And they'll folks open up. They've lived there
Yeah.
for a day or a decade, and they can help you understand. Like, this is my biggest concern. This is why I wouldn't have bought here. This is why I'd buy 10 units in here. So due diligence, evaluation, understanding at a deep level is probably the biggest thing that I push, as opposed to just maybe some surface things, because maybe just something always comes out of the woodwork. Especially
Yeah.
that term comes about because of an older building and there's something behind the wall that they just didn't know about, right? And that comes through with paperwork, financials. It could even be personalities, right? Where somebody has an agenda and they're not pushing it. Like, I've seen in HOAs where they truly have the rentability of units, but somebody is essentially pushing back against the rules and regulations because they just happen to have a voting right and they've got the other
Hmm.
people to vote that way. So just know those details.
You referenced earlier a couple of clients who perhaps had a bad experience buying a site. Do you have a particular horror story to share with us where they bought a property and found later it was unsuitable for their intended use?
Yeah, I mean, I've never had any of my personal clients that have had the issue, but I've been on the receipt of, we tend to be the call of people wanting us to resurrect broken deals. And, for a perfect example is, and this is kind of fits in that dynamic of second home models. Um, we have a cabin near a lake that we're marketing
Hmm.
and selling, and the people that called, very knowledgeable people, very smart, have money, even have an engineering background, folks. And guess what? The site is unbuildable. They went to the property, they did their evaluations of what they do.
Hmm.
They purchased it, found out they couldn't build what they want. Now, I will say this: they did do it themselves. They didn't include an agent. They essentially went through the process of maybe not going as deep as maybe I would request them go,
Hmm.
because I would understand the dynamics at a different level. But at the end of the day, they have a piece of ground that's literally worth the ground you sit on. So it's like, how much is a tent lot worth, right? To be able to stake a tent on and sleep there for
Right.
the night, versus something you can build on. So hopefully they figured out anything can be built on at a price, typically, right?
Very true. Very
Um,
true.
so just be aware of that. And so that cost was not in line for them. Therefore, they were looking at our existing project as a backup. And so that's one of those. I've had different people that I've told in communities and areas, they've had me evaluate, where I've said, hey, they've evaluated the site. They said, we want you to come look at this and evaluate it. So I go there, I look at it, and I remember a specific community. I believe it had about 15 to 20 lots. And I had told this developer on this specific project, I said, the maximum value on these is probably a little over, $2 million.
Hmm.
1.8, 2.2, kind of on average about $2 million.
Yeah.
Anything above and beyond that, you're just not going to reach. And one of the things that they said to me was, well, I think we could get 3 million or above. And I
Hmm.
said, no, I respect that, because there is sales of 3 million, here and here and here and here and here. I said, but this is the dynamics. And I explained the details. Well, sure enough, here we are 4 years later. Okay. Purchased the property, did
Hmm.
all the development. Everything is stubbed. Everything is ready. They've spent over 2.5 years trying to sell first build jobs that were 3 million plus that they thought they could build, never sold one. Then they tried to sell the lots for the purchase price that they purchased it at because of the price point, haven't sold a lot. So now all you have is tumbleweed and improved lots, right? And it's unfortunate because the people that are losing on that project are the investors. The developer in this specific scenario, frankly, I know that he tailored this thing around him not losing, because that's what you do have to be careful of, folks, is if people have a track record of not success or a track record of, do your history, understand who that person is at a high level so that you can understand the dynamics of individuals, and understand the data, right, of who they're providing. If they're just providing you information, get it from the source, right? But that is going to be a failed project. And one day we'll see it pop up on the market for half price. That may be in a year, that may be in 5 years, depends on the staying power. But that is a failed project. And it isn't because it's a failed location. It's because the developer thought in their head it would be a bigger project than what the reality of that is. Hey, in 5 years, the market may catch their $3 million vision. It may be 5 years out, it may be 7 years out, but maybe that's the plan. It's like, well, we couldn't sell it now. We'll hold it 7 to 10 years and we'll sell it then. And that's a real thing that people sometimes do. They buy an asset that is way overpriced. I had a mentor of mine that used to say that. He had a hedge fund. And he said to me, he's like, it's a 10-year rule, Justin. He said, if I have a property or project that I overpaid for, he's like, I know I'm going to be okay in 10 years. So just hold it, keep it, hold it. And over time, it's going to be fine. So sometimes,
as long as they got enough cash, they can just sit on it, and eventually it's going to turn positive.
Yeah, it makes sense, but that's why I tend to stay away from, me personally, just land only. I wish I had the staying power. I tend to have to buy assets that have, something that's income producing, to pay the taxes, pay some sort of a small dividend. But over time, those projects can be really amazing. And if people have the staying power, I think they're great opportunities.
Okay. What advice would you offer to someone just beginning their custom home journey regarding real estate?
I would just recommend know your vision, know what you want to build, know what your expectations are. I almost refer to it as a checklist. When you go to the grocery store, if you want to not buy just a bunch of junk like I do, you have a checklist, right? Especially when you're hungry. So it's the same as a home. You go in with a checklist of items, of the most important items. And then that list will get narrowed depending on your budget, where it's like, it maybe isn't, we wanted a view of the lake, next to the lake and with a boat dock, but the cost isn't in line. And so being up the hill a little bit with an amazing view and access to the boat dock actually makes sense, right? So we're tend to pivot maybe our vision. And just whatever hits the check marks at that point, you're going to evaluate it. Do hire professionals that can properly evaluate the site and understand the dynamics. Now, there's some great contractors and vendors that know the location very well, and they can help you. But you also do want to understand the cost, if it's in line, and what the exit would be if something changes in life. So just know that things do change in time, and you just want to consider that as a fact, right? And just make sure you set it up accordingly. And then after you have known what you want, know what you want, find the site that makes sense. You've done your due diligence and you know what it'll sell for. Just make sure you're choosing the finishes and the things that are in line with your vision. I've seen people overly improve properties where they literally, nobody will pay for your dream, where it's overly improved. We've had properties that they imported marble from Italy. They did a number of beautiful items, but the consumer just wasn't willing to pay for that in that specific location. Where we have had other people that literally had an amazing site, and they literally built almost like a box with very minimal, and nobody wanted it because they're like, this thing feels so cheap and vanilla. It feels like there's no value in it. So match your vision and dream with the going market in order that you can get full value out of it. And that will help you not only to maximize your investment, frankly, you'll enjoy it more. And three, if something occurs in the future, whether you want to keep it and hold it and enjoy it with people, or you want to lease it, or you want to resell it, you will get the dividends from it by properly creating a site or a property that matches the community, as opposed to maybe your dream or just this low budget. So just be in line with the market. That's what I would recommend.
Okay, great. Anything else that you'd like to add, perhaps about the kind of services that you can offer to owners on this journey?
I just say, folks, listen. Don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait. If you
Hmm.
like a project, like a site, it's a great opportunity. Like, take advantage of it. Heck, if it's a great property, call me. I'll partner with you. But I would say when you pick somebody that does it like you do, because they're going to look at it like an owner. I think that's really important. The more education and experience your person has, is going to help you to reach your goals. Myself, I have a team, and so I do that so that I can serve more people, and know that if they do have a team, it's almost like going to the doctor, right? You don't want to go to a doctor that does heart surgery 3 or 4 times a year. You want them to do hundreds of surgeries, at a
Yeah.
time. And they do have assistants to help them do the volume. And it's not so that they're not servicing their clients, it's so they can actually take their experience and help more people. So if people do have some assistants and different people that are helping them, know that you're probably going to have a better and a more full service experience than maybe just some individual. But just do your due diligence, look at their reviews, connect with them, see if you like them. I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
Make sure you vibe with them very well. There's different folks that have the ability and have the money, and would just it just wasn't going to match from expectations. And sometimes I've just said, hey, I just don't think this is a match, and sometimes the other folks do, right? And so just make sure that they may have all the qualifications, but just make sure that they understand you and that it's a good match, not only professionally, but also with what you're looking for. And I think then you'll have a fun experience, an amazing experience. It should be that way. It will be harder
Hmm.
than you think, so expect that.
Yep.
Expect it to be a challenge, and know that's normal. But anything worthwhile in life is a challenge. So we always take those. It helps us level up. It helps us learn new things. And frankly, we become better people. And the better we become, the more we can serve others. So I guess I'll leave you with that.
That's perfect. I couldn't say it better myself. I think that's our time. Justin, thank you for joining the conversation around the drafting table today. A very engaging discussion, and thank you for providing your thoughts on site selection.
Thank you, sir.
And until next time, to our audience, get in touch with the Oxford Architects so we can dream together.